Kamen Rider Build.
Hey YouTube, Kamen Rider here with my review of Kamen Rider Build episode 25. So this was another solid episode. It was kind of, I don't want to say a setup episode, but it was kind of one of those midway point episodes where we start learning little bits of information, and it's clearly like a bridge into like some of the next major storytelling points. We also had a successful sting operation in which they found out who the bug was inside of Toto, yes. Toto, yes. Basically what they did was they spread information about where Pandora's box was to several different places and wound up finding out that it was like the leader guy whose name I forget, assistant, Rogue's dad. It was his assistant. He's probably been in the show before. I'm gonna be honest, this is the first time I ever saw him. Like, they're like, oh, it's this guy. I'm like, oh no, not that guy who I feel like I'm just meeting for the first time. He's probably someone's favorite character. No, but I don't remember him at all. Like, everyone just kind of background noise that isn't the main characters to me. But so that's kind of funny because like last week I mentioned how I was curious if there was an actual mole or a bug or whatever, because well, a bug is like the tech thing, so it wouldn't be a bug, but the mole, whatever. I was talking about last week how I was wondering if it was like an actual thing or whether it was just a combination of them bugging like the offices and stuff and like Rogue just having inside info, but it was an actual leak. So they caught him. That was kind of a smart plan, but ultimately, Rogue found found the location of actual Pandora's box and took out the last member of the Yu-Gi-Oh trio. I'm kind of glad they're gone. Again, I just hated how obnoxious their just look was. Like even after he got attacked, like his already ridiculous hair was over, I'm like, oh my god, I can't even with you. So that guy's not on the show anymore, so I'm not really sad about that, to be honest. There was dealing with Misora, which like what happened with her last week, her showing up and just being all weird, and like we opened up the episode with her pushing the Sento guys through the wall, and she like rearranged the wall so it was open. So that was interesting. And it brought up some really interesting mysteries about it. I mean, they sort of just like reinforced all the stuff we knew about her, basically. But we find out, at least I don't remember this being mentioned before in any way, but this was like a significant mention, was that whenever she's purifying a bottle, she basically sees a vision of this city on Mars getting destroyed. And they're thinking like, oh, maybe like, my powers are a way for whatever powers that be involved in this are trying to prevent us suffering the same fate as Mars. It definitely gave me a little bit of Gaim vibes when Zangetsu showed Michi the destroyed city inside Helheim, like what was previously like one of the last cities taken over by Helheim. And what I think is interesting about all of that is that we have so much going on in Build, because like we have this whole war storyline, we have like everybody's individual character storylines, what's Stalk up to, and that very well could be tied to the sci-fi stuff, but it's just interesting that we have a lot going on. So sometimes, even though they bring it up enough to remind you it's present, sometimes it's easy to forget that we still have this whole section of the story and mystery that revolves around how exactly Mars is involved. I mean, obviously we know Pandora's box came from it, but like we don't know how much that's going to be a part of the story later in terms of what we get to see from what was on Mars. Are there any aliens that are involved? I know a lot of people are theorizing that there's some sort of beings that are working with or pulling Stalk's strings, and I just think that's so awesome that Build is just so filled of great intriguing questions, which is one of my favorite things about writer shows. I love when there's lore and character mysteries, because I'm so curious, like, what's Stalk involved with? What's going on with Mars? Are they connected? Likely, but it might not be all that. It's neat that, they do a good job of bringing it up. There's a lot of toku shows where they'll just outright drop mysteries for like 10 episodes and then bring it back up when it's relevant, but they keep it up often enough that you remember that it's something that's going to be important later, but not so often that it's distracting from all the other things they have going on. So I thought that was neat. Some neat little seeds planted there for the future of her storyline. And then, before I get to the last part I want to talk about, I have to mention again the intros. I think it was the intros. I almost feel like it was something Ryuga said in the episode, but I think it was the intro when they're recapping what happened, and Ryuga's main like concern was that Misora walked all the way to the battle scene barefoot, like with the shards of glass and stuff. I don't know, I like stuff like that. But yeah, in the final battle of the episode, you know, Sento goes Hazard again, and he actually manages to land a successful hit on Rogue. Like previously, it was like, oh man, not even Hazard can damage him because he was like punching him and it was like bouncing off of him. That's punching. And, you know, he did like a finisher and it actually knocked Rogue back. But of course he lost control. It's kind of like the same scene every time he's Hazard. Like, all right, I'm Hazard. I think I got it this time. Wait. And then he goes dead. And so he's like a mindless destruction monster. But then Misora shows up, which was kind of stupid just on her part because she talked about earlier how she wanted to help, but then like, you can't help. Like, you have no powers, like, that you can control. But she like instantly almost got herself seriously hurt. And then after that, you know, Build was choking her up against the wall because he's like in berserker mode. And then like the cliffhanger of the episode is her bracelet reacting and turning the tank side of his visor into another rabbit, which is obviously, for those of us that keep up with the scans and stuff, we know rabbit rabbit, tank tank are coming. It's like Cyclone Cyclone Joker Joker, except it doesn't appear for 10 seconds and then sell you an exclusive figure. But I think that's a neat way of doing it. I like how it's funny because there used to be, you know, in Rider you have all the different kinds of forms. You have like the main form, the final form, and then you have the ability forms in between. And then somewhere in between that, we all of a sudden started getting like the mid-season form, like the midway point, and then it became 2 mid-seasons, like quarter season and mid-season, you know. Like for Den-O, it's like sword form, climax form, and then liner form was that. But then you started getting stuff like Gaim, where it's base form, and Jimba, Kachidoki, and then final. So you had these 2 sort of significant forms in the middle, and Build sort of kept that up with the first significant one being Sparking, and then this being Hazard. But they found a way to turn basically a storyline of this into 3 significant forms for the mid-season combo. And I kind of like that though, because it makes it unique that Hazard's going to lead into Rabbit, Rabbit, Tank, Tank. And I also like that, unless I just missed a scene where they showed it, that this is how we're starting to intro into its storyline, rather than like with Hazard, that we got a the Hazard trigger that Stalk had. And I like that both of these forms don't have as much to do with him just finding, you know, oh, another file on the flash drive that I didn't see. But so yeah, this was a solid like setup episode for like the next form storyline and planting seeds for the mysteries around Misora and Mars. M&M, if you will. Overall, solid episode. I would give it an 8. Till next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. It's Dawson Rider.